Okay, tonight is class 9, and we're going to be starting the first of 4 classes in regard to the administrative per se law that there is in the state of Connecticut. The administrative per se law is basically the drug and alcohol program. And as it states here, drugs and alcohol, what are the odds when you gamble with your life by mixing alcohol or drugs or both when driving? Take my answer away. Would you agree with it? Okay. Worse than you what? Do you think? Studies indicate that nearly half of all the fatal motor vehicle accidents involve a drinking driver. In case you didn't hear that, I'm going to read it a second time. Studies indicate that nearly half of all fatal motor vehicle accidents involve a drinking driver. Is there still anyone that didn't hear me read that statement? Okay, how about if I read it just one more time? Studies indicate that how many? Nearly half of all fatal motor vehicle accidents involve a drinking driver. Okay, let's take a look at the slide. Does the top picture have anything to do with driving?
Yeah.
All right. Potentially some type of an accident, and there could be a whole bunch of reasons why that accident occurred. All right. However, tonight, because of the topic that we are talking about, potentially that could have happened because the driver may have been what? May have been drinking, is correct, or under the influence of a drug. All right, what about the bottom picture over here? It looks like an explosion. Has anything to do with driving?
No.
Okay, potentially this person in this automobile accident, whether it was drinking or drugs or fell asleep or inattention or distracted because of using a cell phone, okay, he may have gotten killed. All right, in this scene down here, could people get killed from a scene like that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a war scene. Am I correct? And again, people have gotten killed. All right, here by automobile accident, here by some type of a conflict. All right, here's the wall of remembrance. All right, this is actually a traveling wall that travels around the country, and maybe some of you kids have been down to Washington, D.C. and seen the actual real wall itself. Okay, and what does that represent? The number of people who have died during the what war? Vietnam War. Okay. Okay, what does the Traveling Vietnam Memorial have to do with driving or the Vietnam Memorial period? Anybody have any idea? Well, the people died both in the Vietnam War and people die because of automobile accidents. All right? Anything else? Okay, let's see what else we have. The following slide asks 3 questions about the Vietnam War. 1. How many Americans were killed in the Vietnam War? Anybody have an idea? Any answers? 20,000? 220,000? Anyone else? How long were Americans involved in the Vietnam War? Anyone? 6 years? Anyone else? What kinds of weapons are used to kill soldiers in time of war? Guns. Bombs. Why do we know that? Yeah. Weapons that what? Kill, right? Answer to question number 1. There was 58,155 Americans killed in the Vietnam War. Answer to question number 2. The Americans were involved 10 years. In answer to question number 3, we already said guns, knives, bombs, weapons that kill human beings. What do these figures have to do with driving? What do you think?
How many people die a year?
Yes. Not from guns and bombs and everything else. Die a year from what though?
Drinking and driving.
Drinking and driving. Not really, but that is the amount of people that are killed in automobile accidents every single year. Okay? Approximately the same amount, all right? And we'll say that, okay? Each year there's a comparable amount of people killed in automobile accidents as were killed in the entire 10-year Vietnam War. Not from being killed by what? Guns, knives, bombs, and other weapons that kill. A typical motor vehicle question might be, and you might have this on your permit test, and or you could have it on the final exam. DMV question, what percentage of fatal motor vehicle accidents are caused by intoxicated drivers each year? How many people say A, 40%? Okay, so we have some there, some here. Okay, how many people say B, 50%? Not everybody raised their hand before. Okay, how about C, 60%? All right. Well, the correct answer is what? It is A. Because in the very first slide, how many times did I read the statement?
Nearly half.
Nearly half, and nearly half represents how much?
Not half.
Not half, and if it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, it's going to be what? 40%. And you kids have that on your permit test?
I did.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay. It's dangerous to drink and then walk as it is to drink and then drive. Among adult pedestrians killed in motor vehicle accidents, 1 in 4 was known to have been drinking. So you don't have to be behind the wheel. You could be walking along the side of the street and an intoxicated driver could come along and what? Hit you. All right. In the last, I would say, 10 years or so, there were 2 Yukon co-eds that were walking alongside the road. The other one was jogging alongside the road, and they were killed by an intoxicated driver. In fact, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, but the next time you come into class for the second part of drug and alcohol. Okay, obviously alcohol has very serious effect. The statistics you have seen cover only those fatalities in which alcohol could be detected as a factor. No one knows how many non-fatal accidents are caused by drinking drivers. Alcohol's serious effects on traffic safety can be understood by knowing how alcohol affects the driver. Now, in your DARE classes, in your science classes, your biology classes, it's been explained to you that alcohol can affect you biologically. All right? A person's behavior is largely determined by the orderly operation of various sections of the brain and other parts of the nervous system. In fact, the alcohol affects the central nervous system. The normal functions of these nerve pathways are impaired by alcohol, which enters the bloodstream almost immediately. The cerebrum, which controls thought and reason, is affected first. A person begins to lose some control over his behavior. Also affected are restraints or inhibitions, which person's judgment, reason, and knowledge impose on his own behavior, his self-control. Okay. What's a person's inhibition? Anybody? All right. Tonight I reinforced some of the things that we shouldn't really have to be telling you. Again, I keep on pointing out to you that taking on driving is really an adult responsibility. And I always compare things that you do in class as to things that you might do when you're a what? A driver. So if you don't give a darn in the classroom, unless someone's on top of you all the time, it's just like the class I taught last night. 24 people. What do you think the number one reason was why those people were in that violators program last night? They didn't care because the number one reason why people have to take that retraining violators class is, again, does anybody know? Speeding. You got that? And what happens when they're on a highway and whether they're going the speed limit or above and they see a police officer over to the side of the road, what do?
Slow down.
They take their foot off the gas pedal. But once they get away from the police officer, what do again? Off they go. All right? So it takes authority to, keep us in line like that. Other than that, we take some risks that you could get hurt with. Okay. Are there some people that started last night here tonight? Okay, one person. All right. What's your first name? Daniel? All right, Daniel. I would imagine you came in last night and you were very, very polite to Mrs. Pats. Just like you're being very, very polite here tonight. Okay? It's just like the first day of school. September. If you go into a classroom where there's a teacher you never had before, are you likely to start talking and doing things that perhaps you shouldn't be doing? No, you go in because you have some respect for the teacher. Some teachers are a little more liberal. Some, they find out right away. You talked, well, you got a detention first day of school. That's it. Okay? All right, so that's what is known as an inhibition. It's a guard that we have of not doing things or saying things because we know it could be detrimental to our existence, our performance. Okay? I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a parent that doesn't like their job. And every night they come home at the dinner table and they state to your mother and so forth that, geez, I don't know if I can go to work tomorrow. It's a tough job. Been there longer than anybody else, and I get all the dirty things to do. However, or it could be your mother saying that to your father, all right? However, what happens tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock? Mother or father climbs out of bed, and off they what? Whether they like it or not, okay? To some extent. Are you kids going through that right now? All right? I'm sure that you realize this is the month of what? May. What's going to happen in another month? Am I correct? However, even though you get up because you know that you just have to do it. You're not going any place unless you are knowledgeable. Okay? Let's say that your mother or father at this company they work for, Memorial Day's coming up. Let's say before the holiday, they have a office party or a company party. And at the party, what kind of beverages are served or made available? Alcoholic beverages. And let's say that your mother or father consumes one or two or more, maybe they should have, and they begin to say things about their job. And let's say the boss overhears it. What might the boss say? You don't have to like your job, and you don't have to what tomorrow? Come in. You got that? So it's a guard that we have. Okay. Next slide. DMV question. What ability is first affected by alcohol? Skill, coordination, or judgment? And it is judgment. Okay? One of the first restraints to go is the inhibition against further drinking, which in turn leads to further loss of control. Without his normal inhibitions, the driver takes risks that are both needless and dangerous. Although a person's self-control is weakened,
Yeah, that'd be bad.
his emotional drives look like someone you know? Anger, fear, anxiety, and others are still strong because they are centered in the lower part of the what? Brain and not yet affected by alcohol. The result, we can control over his driving judgment and emotions, leading to foolish and dangerous driving actions. This condition usually exists without his realization. It is the most dangerous of all alcohol effects. Then should he continue drinking, other things begin to happen. Alcohol affects not only a person's thought center, but as the blood alcohol concentration in the bloodstream increases, the centers concerned with neural, muscular, coordination, can't see, vision are affected. You got that? In other words, as a person consumes alcohol, how is their walk affected? What is it called? Staggered. How's their speech? Slurred. And finally, how's their vision? Blurred. Okay? And those are all not good if you get behind the what? The wheel. Reducing either of these increases the driver's chance of causing or becoming involved in an accident. Yet both are dulled by enough alcohol. In addition, the person's reaction time is noticeably lengthened. Increasing amounts of alcohol in the blood mean severe drops in both judgment and driving efficiency. However, instead of realizing his dangerous condition, a driver who has had several drinks usually thinks he can control a car better than when sober. After drinking, a driver calms down, reasons well, sees less, takes longer to react to both routine and hazardous driving situations, and poorer coordination. Although the driver who is obviously drunk is a serious danger, he can be usually what? Spotted and apprehended. Okay. Who do you think is a better intoxicated person when it comes to driving? The casual drinker or the alcoholic? Why?
He's used to it.
He's not really used to it, but he knows he's what?
Drunk.
He knows he's drunk. So he's going to slow down and prod along. Where the casual drinker, they think they're fine. I cringe every night when I go out of the parking lot over here. There's a sports bar with a open deck there. And, those people have to get home. And they're served. I'm sure that the person serving is aware of how many they had, but can some people be very affected just with one drink? Yes. Okay, very affected. All right, and there's all kinds of things that should be taken into consideration. All right. Could you have someone else drive? Could you have the designated driver?
Yeah.
Those are all classical things that you could do, right? Okay. The driver who's had only a few drinks is even more dangerous. He may not always seem affected. Inwardly, though, he is much what? Less dependable than normally. To help combat the menace of drinkers who drive, testing devices have been developed which indicate the concentration of alcohol in a person's blood. The following table shows the medical legal interpretation recommended for use in Connecticut to help determine if a person is under the influence of an intoxicant. Okay, how does this testing devices come about? Yeah, however, If you were stopped by a police officer because of suspicion of being under the influence of something, right? They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask you if you had consumed any alcoholic beverages. And you have to answer. And if you have consumed them, and if you want to admit to it, you will. However, let's say you had something to drink, and you don't want to what? Admit to it. Is that legal? That is absolutely legal. However, what's going to happen?
You're gonna find out.
The consequences are going to be what?
Worse.
Worse. You got that? We're going to cover some terms as we go through. Does anybody know what implied consent is? Be asked this on your test again. All right? Implied consent is that when you sign your driver's license, you are giving consent to every police officer in Connecticut and maybe the United States to administer a field sobriety test and then a chemical test. However, when push comes to shove, do you have to take the test? You don't have to take the test again, but what's the consequence going to be? All right? Some people think, well, if I don't take the test, how can they prove that I was intoxicated? All right. Any of your teachers that you have during the day, as far as in that school, what are they considered to be in their subject area?
Experts.
An expert, all right, or very, very knowledgeable. You agree with that? Okay. A police officer is a police officer because he is very, very knowledgeable about all the laws about driving. You got that? So besides the motor vehicle consequence, you also have a criminal consequence, and you have to go to court. Understand that? And before you actually go in front of the judge, sometimes you will have a lawyer, and or the lawyer will meet with you and the prosecutor. Did you ever hear about the prosecutor? Okay, what side is the prosecutor on?
On your side.
He's not on your side, okay? So he's going to pull out the report by the police officer, and it says, well, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, you didn't take the field sobriety test or the chemical test, and why do you think that you have been falsely accused? Well, I didn't take the test. How can they prove it, right? But Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, it says that when the police officer stopped you and walked up and you rolled the window down, you had a high odor of alcohol on you. Your hair was all messed up. You had vomit all over your shirt. When the police officer asked you to get out of the car, you fell out of the car. Okay? Could you explain that behavior if you didn't have anything to drink? Okay? So you don't have anything to drink in circumstances like that. All right? Police officer also has to read you what is known as the Miranda law or act. Okay? And, there are lawyers out there that dwell on anything the police officer may not have said in the report of the, okay? Because actually, you're taken down to the motor vehicle department and you're actually read that again. However, this time it's recorded by video camera. All right, so there's a whole bunch of things. So once they do the field sobriety test, what's some of the famous things they do on the field sobriety test?
Zero. Straight line.
Pardon? Alphabet backwards. How many people believe that? No way. Okay? Then some people can't say it forwards. You got that? Truly. I mean, I had people in the class last night that could barely read. all right? Barely spoke English, all right? And I have to give the presentation by law in English. I don't have to accommodate anyone else. That's what the language is and used like that. They could ask you the time of the day. Okay, they could ask you what day it is. They could ask you what your name is. They could ask you to name a number between 9 and 11. You got that? And then they could ask you to say the alphabet. Then they also could have you get out of the car and walk the straight line. Okay? Also, if you kids were here the other day when Emily and I were, was it Emily or was it Michelle, right? I had her raise her right foot off the ground, all right? And count to 30. You got that? Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, and if you should proceed through the sobriety test and then you're taken down to the police department, they're going to offer you a chemical test. And there's 3 kinds of chemical tests that they could offer you. The least offensive is what? The breath test. There also could be a urine test. And there also could be a blood test. A blood test can only be administered, however, by a medical person. All right, then after you take the test, actually it's given to you 2 times in a period of 30 minutes to see if your blood alcohol is staying where it is, going up or going down. If you are 21 years and older and you have a blood alcohol content of 0.08, you will be arrested for what? DUI. DUI is synonymous with DWI. What does DWI mean? Intoxicated, and that's driving under the influence because it includes drugs. All right, 21 and younger, that is who? You people, your blood alcohol content just has to be 0.02. How much alcohol is that? Anybody know? Take a guess? Okay. First of all, what is a drink? It could be 1.5 ounces of whiskey or vodka or gin or scotch, whatever. Or it could be 3 to 5 ounces of what? Wine and 12 fluid ounces of beer. Okay? And if you had 1 drink in 1 hour and you weigh between 160 and 180 pounds, okay, your blood alcohol content would be 0.025. If you had 2 drinks in 1 hour, it doubles to 0.05. If you had 3 drinks, it's 0.75, and 4 drinks is 0.1. Conversely to that, if you got to this level after 4 drinks, would you sober up from 4 drinks in 1 hour?
No.
What is the rule? The rule is for every drink it takes 1 hour to dissipate or sober up from. You understand that? Okay? And for younger people and so forth, it might even take longer. All right? Because you're not that heavy. Okay, here is the administrative per se law through the DMV. Again, administrative per se means it starts all the way up in the state capitol, and there is some administrator that administrates the laws in the state of Connecticut. You know, we're going to look at, first of all, if you are 21 years in age and older, okay, let me see this here. Okay, let's do this one right here. 21 and older, and you what? You agree to what the police officer has questioned you about? Okay, you will have a 90-day suspension of your driver's license. Okay, what about if you disagree? and you are 21 and older, you'll have a 6-month suspension of your driver's license. Okay, let's get down to your age. If you are 21 years of age and under 21 years of age and you agree to consumption, then you will have a suspension of how long?
1 year.
1 year. Wow. If you disagree, you got it? Refusal, then you're going to have a suspension of what? 18 months. And you can see it goes up what on the second and what? Third offense. You got that? Okay. All right. Regardless if you are over 21 or under 21, besides the DMV penalty, there is also a criminal penalty. I told you that. And on your first offense, you could be fined $500 to $1,000. You could be put in jail for 6 months, a minimum of 48 hours, and a mandatory or 6 months suspended sentence with 100 hours of community service. Second offense, $1,000 to $4,000, 2 years in jail, 120 days minimum. You will serve that. Mandatory 100 hours of community service. Third offense, 2 to what? 8,000, 3 years in jail, 1 year minimum. Mandatory 100 hours of community service. And permanent revocation of your what? Driver's license. The person may request a hearing after at least 6 years after the date of revocation. DMV question. For people 21 years of age and older, what are the penalties for agreeing to driving after consuming alcohol over the legal limit? What is it? 90 days. Got it? DMV question. For people under 21 years of age, what are the penalties for agreeing to driving after consuming alcohol over the legal limit? Okay? Full year. What are the penalties for refusing to take a DUI test if you are 21 years of age and older? 180?
Yeah.
And if you're under 21 and you refuse, it's what? C, 18 months. The typical DMV question is, how long will it take you to sober up after having 3 beers?
3 hours.
Okay, 3 hours. The answer is 3 hours. A person's breath or urine can indicate the concentration of alcohol in his blood. The tests are performed on those suspected of being under the influence. The findings of such tests are used by law enforcement agencies to help establish the driver's guilt or innocence of driving when under the influence of alcohol. Driving accidents can be reduced by drinkers refusing to what? Drive. If you know that you're under the influence, then you should have some knowledge that it wouldn't be a good idea. And drinking drivers what? Being disciplined. Much of what has been said about alcohol and driving also applies to many drugs taken for illness or to ease tension or to help a person stay awake. The effect of drugs is often similar to alcohol: lower reasoning ability and judgment, and a hopped up feeling caused by dull self-control or lost inhibitions. On the other hand, some drugs can cause dangerous drowsiness and excessive relaxation. Whether drugs are bought with or without a prescription, a doctor should be consulted as to their possible effects on driving ability. Mixing some drugs and alcohol is especially dangerous because of the heightened effects of such a combination. Does anybody know what the term is when you mix 2 substances together? You get what is known as a synergy. And at one time it was thought that the effect is an added effect. However, it is really what? A multiplied effect. As a driver, you should be aware of these potential dangers and avoid taking alcohol or drugs before driving. Studies show that a great many fatal motor vehicle accidents involve a driver who has been drinking. Since a driver has a great responsibility for his own safety and the safety of others, he must be in complete control of his behavior at the wheel. Thus, he should avoid taking alcohol or drugs before driving because the effects are weakened judgment and inhibitions, impaired vision, coordination and skills, unimpaired emotional drives, and ignorance of his condition. Here's a chart that's from the state of Connecticut, and in the use of alcohol, cocaine, which is really tough, and marijuana. How many states are there?
50.
Where do you think Connecticut is? In the top what? 10 in all three categories. Why is Connecticut in the top 10? What is it?
I said because we're the Constitution state.
Constitution state?
Rich.
Okay. Yes, someone just said it. All right. In this particular state, there is finances that you kids have availability to. All right. You'll find that most kids from suburban schools will go to a driving school, whereas kids in deep inner city schools, they what? They don't go. You got that? They're lucky they have shoes. All right.